Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I've got I don't think anybody knows him really, other than a few people in his circle probably, but his name is Austin Graham. Austin recently just reached out to me and gave the team just a really nice comment about him as a Pebble user. And I don't usually talk too much about Pebble on this podcast here, but it was just great to see how Austin is running his business. He really is a fan of keeping things simple when it comes to marketing, making deals, talking to people, looking for deals, and it's been very prosperous for his land business. So I wanted to bring on somebody here to talk about this because I feel in the land space, things sometimes get overcomplicated. That's not to say he hasn't done complicated deals, but I mean, it's great to see how simple he keeps it and the margins he gets back from it. Anyways, I think you're going to love this episode, especially if you're thinking about marketing and trying out things like even mailing or other marketing forms and really getting understanding of what he's got in place. So we get into the nitty gritty, get a pen and paper out as well for this one. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode here with Austin. Cheers. All right, I've got a guest here. His name is Austin. Austin, how you doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
Good. Austin, we chatted briefly on Facebook before, and you are a user of Pebble here, and you sort of reached out and dropped some nice words, and I was like, man, it would be great to just kind of have you on to talk about what you are doing. And I love sort of just pulling in people that are just in the grind and actively working on their business. And I don't know if you typically put yourself out there or not, but I figured, I think we could have a great conversation here about what you're actively doing. So it's always nice to have guests like yourself on the podcast. So welcome. Austin, can you give us a little bit of an understanding, how did you get started in land? When did you start? How did that all kind of come about?
Yeah, so I actually had no plan on getting into land. I was a financial advisor with a bank here in town, and I'm a pretty devout Christian, and I started to feel that there was some changes coming in my life, and the door really began to open up to where I could pursue wedding videography with my wife. My wife has a wedding video business. Yeah, we have two young kids, and I just hated our oldest daughter. Every day I'd leave for work, she would say, "Daddy, don't leave," and you can only hear that so many times before your heart just breaks. And so we started to really consider and crunch numbers and see if I could quit just going full time into video. And we made the decision just to give it a shot and see what happens. So right as I put my 2 weeks notice in with my boss, who was very sad. I was doing very well as a financial advisor, but I wanted family time over business time. A mentor of mine who, Phil Marsh, I don't know if you know him or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a small, Phil, shout out to you, but Phil is definitely someone that we talk to a lot when it comes to Pebble. Phil definitely has a hand inside of Pebble. Let me say that.
Yeah. He's so him and I, we go to the same church. And so, So around the time I was quitting, my wife and I, we had approached him and his wife for months and even a couple of years at that point, just saying, hey, we want to get into doing real estate. We want to get into it. And finally, around the time I was quitting, he was feeling to start a coaching business. And so it just lined up. He said, "Austin, here's what I'll charge you. Go. Like, if you want it, I'll teach you." And I was hungry. I had no thought about getting into land until finally I was like, the doors are open. I might as well follow through it. And so I paid him what his fee was, and it was just off to the races from there. I started, it was just a crazy story. I got my first deal. I bought half of a mountain in Golden Valley, Arizona, in Kingman, Arizona, and I bought it for I think 11,000, and I sold it to a geologist a month later for 27, and that was it was crazy, and that was through texting. And then overall last year I was texting, but this year I made it my focus to get into mailing because the restrictions and the regulations on mailing is a lot less. And so, yeah, all last year was kind of my trial and error year, and then this year I've really honed into what my focus is. So, I had no plan on getting into land, but the door just opened, and I've always been kind of a people person, so I followed it where it went, and it just worked out very well.
I had no idea. Let's be through Bill Marsh here. So
Yeah,
it's that's
yeah,
awesome to hear. I have, and you guys listening here, I have no idea about Austin other than a couple of video exchanges we've had or messages we've had on YouTube. I'm sorry, on Facebook. So that is
yeah.
so cool. Awesome. So you started a couple of years ago. You went through some coaching. Now I'm assuming you're doing this full time, and your wife is still involved with the wedding video stuff.
Yeah. So I'm full in on land. I had a couple of weddings that we had booked for this year. So this is my last year doing wedding films. I just it was good to get me where I wanted to go, but not for sustainability. So yeah, my wife is full time in her wedding photography business, and she's doing very good. And I'm full in on land.
Oh man, two entrepreneurs in the house. I know
Yeah.
what that's like. I kind of went through a similar path with my wife as well, and we used to work on a joint business together. And now we're doing our own thing. So that's very
Yes.
cool. So you're clearly entrepreneur like spirited there, which is really cool to see. So you started off with texting, and texting is
Mhm.
still a very interesting area. Um, so are you completely moved away from texting at this point?
Yeah, I keep the previous. I'm able to keep. I was using Launch Control, and so Launch Control has an option to where if you're done with texting, you can pay $97 a month or something around there to continue to follow up with leads that you might have had. So I moved to their very light option. So I'm paying a recurring monthly charge, but I'm able to go back through any leads that might come in and keep in contact with them to maybe close some deals. And I've actually have closed some deals since cutting off texting in March. Just by follow ups. So it still works a little bit
Okay,
for
so
sure.
follow-ups hugely important. I was running the Dirt Hacker Challenge this morning. We were sort of talking about follow-ups and the importance of that because I remember I had a friend on there. She's been in the line business for a long time, and we were just talking how back in the day, 5, 6 years ago, you never had to follow up, and clearly that is part of
Mhm.
the game now. I mean, do you do anything specific when it comes to follow up? Clearly, these are leads that have gotten back to you, and you're
Mhm.
continuing to follow up with them. Is there anything with launch control? Are you automating that process, or are you just checking for any communication? You're just following up, or you're just blasting out to them? What are you doing there?
Kind of, I take a shotgun approach unless I had a really good lead with someone. There's certain people the key element with texting, and I know we're not talking about texting, but the key element with texting is constantly being in front of them and just reaching back out every now and again and setting up those reminders. It's the same thing with mailing. Whereas once you have their phone numbers from the mailing campaign, depending on how you're doing it, you have their phone number, so you just have to remember, hey, I just need to call this person. But with texting, the key, I just closed a deal in June. I had been talking with a lady for 9 months. Like she would just randomly, hey, I'm ready, and I would reach back out to her and never hear anything. Finally, she was fully ready, and I bought her property for 15 and sold it for 38 3 weeks later. So like, it was. There's been a lot of those there's been a lot of those little stories, and so it's the main thing is follow up, and I'm horrible at it. I'll be the first one to admit. Phil chides me a lot on it. I'm just really bad at follow up, but when I have been consistent with it just works tremendously well.
That's so interesting. Okay, I want to dive a little bit more into this because you've always got this sort of push and pull with texting. I mean, you're one that, and I know a lot of. I mean, it seemed like 2 years ago texting was the big thing, and last year it's been like since around October. With the whole thing with launch control and all that, like it's been a very like yes and no game. And like, I don't know
Mm.
where people are with that. So you decide to leave texting. Was there a sort of a cutoff point? Was it that during that time when things really got slammed around fall of last year in 20, when I say last year, 2023?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, right around then. I was okay. I had gone through about two or three stints during 23 where texting was just shut down for weeks, like 4 or 5, 6 weeks at a time. Like it was, that was my primary source of income. It's very stressful. But I was noticing I had a couple of students that I was bringing on to start texting to learn the land business, and it took 3 months for them to get started with launch control because of regulations. Not anything. Launch control is great. Launch control is a great service, but it was the additional regulations that were coming down from the carriers that was really gumming up the process. And so around the fall mark, I talked to Phil and we're kind of spitballing like, hey, like texting is getting really regulated. So do you want to keep fighting this uphill battle, or do you just want to figure out how mailing can work? And he started doing his own mailing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to cut it off and just focus on mailing. And I've been clearing 2 to 3 to 4 deals a month now consistently since fully moving over to mailing.
Okay, we're going to talk about mailing here. Just a couple wrap up questions on texting. There are still people that are trying to attempt to do it. What have you heard about texting as of recently? I don't know if you stay in touch with that.
No, I don't. I don't stay in touch with it too much, to be honest. Since I moved over, I haven't really paid attention because I'm one of those guys. I want to keep things as streamlined and as easy as I can. I do know from texting, though, from my students that had gotten signed up, literally a 3 month ordeal, constantly checking back in, constantly trying to figure out. And the whole thing is validation from the carriers. The carriers want to validate that you're not some scam artist, right? And how they do that, I have no clue. But that's the big holdup. If it wasn't for that, texting was a great option. I've closed deals this year from last year's text messages, even though I've gone full in on mailing. So it does work. It's a great option. It's a cheap option, right? That was the big rub. It's about 11 to 12 cents a name and a phone number versus 52 cents a mailer, right? So there's a substantial cost difference there. But I'm just moving to what's working consistently now, and mailing has been that key.
I don't know if people will bark at me for saying this, but I feel like mailing and more like and sorry, mailing and cold calling are probably going to be the ones that are going to stick around. Unfortunately, I've seen such a mixed bag with texting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like on and off, and then I don't know what's going on with RVM. Obviously, you can always fly under the radar, but
Yeah,
would you rather spend the time now to hone in on something that is sustainable, or like you said, continue to fight an uphill battle? Then that's there's
right.
no wrong or right to that. I think that's going to be up to the investor themselves. Um,
Yeah, it all works.
Now, obviously, it sounds like there's for you to make mailing work, yes, it is getting pricier with mailing, but it sounds like it's continuing. I mean, the margin seems to make sense for you. Is that right? Can you give us any insights into? A lot of people are wondering, is it worth doing mailing? What are your thoughts on that end? Obviously, it is because you're doing it, but
Yeah,
any
yeah.
insights in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen both sides of the spectrum, and both sides recently. I wasn't texting in 20 and 21 when it was booming, right? So I've seen it on the slower end, and then I've seen mailing where we're at right now. And the cost of a mailing campaign, for example, might run me anywhere between, on the low end, 300, on the high end, 700, because I'm trying to mail about 1,000 to 1,200, maybe 1,500 a week, roughly. So it's costing me, $500-600 a week to mail. But my goal, and this comes from my mentor, my goal is to get at least one deal per mailing campaign. And the fun thing with mailing campaign, at least how I operate, is I do a lot of blind offers. My primary business is fully in blind offers. I'm making an assessed offer based off of the county's value. I'm in Florida, so it's pretty good data. Um, so, if it costs me $500 or $600 and I make 9 or 10 grand on one deal, I would take that day and night. every day, you know?
Aren't we so spoiled with our margins?
No, it's just I've talked to Phil about houses. Like I've been wanting to get into rentals. And
Yeah.
he's like, why would you want to deal with plumbing issues and roofs and when land is so easy, you know? So, or even just wholesaling or flipping, whatever you want to say, like it's just the difference is just night and day.
Okay. So you're doing blind offers. Really interesting. Have you ever found an instance where you feel like, I don't know, have you experimented doing like a neutral or a letter of intent versus a blind offer? And what are your discoveries with that?
Yeah. So what I've noticed is in rural areas throughout the U.S., I do neutral letters. It is incredibly time consuming and difficult to accurately price rural areas. You know, if you're seeing in an entire county 10 deals, right, and some of Oklahoma's county, and I mail in Oklahoma neutral letters primarily. Some of the counties in Oklahoma are huge, and there's very few deals there. So if I'm sending out a blind offer at assessed value, the assessed value most of the time in Oklahoma is extremely off. Like they'll say, for example, you'll see like a 10-acre parcel and the assessed county value is $300. Well, you know that's not accurate. You know, not in any world is that accurate. And so I've really just been experimenting with neutral letters and just trying to get leads generated just from my letter, you know. So I have people coming in doing that. I get phone calls. I'll get whatever back. I do notice too, depending on where you're buying your data, whether it's Data Tree or some of these other options, with Data Tree, when you are buying the full county's data, they'll split it into two groups. You'll have ag land and you'll have vacant. They might have it labeled differently. But the ag land, I almost always send neutral letters right out of the gate. As soon as I see agriculture land, I just send a neutral letter. Don't even think twice about it. On the vacant land, which might be more for houses or little subdivisions or whatever, those I'll attempt to do some kind of blind offer on. I'll just do a percentage of the assessed value and see what comes back to me. Most of the time it generates a couple of leads, but in Oklahoma, at least for neutral letters, it's hit or miss, very hit or miss.
Interesting. Okay. I hope you guys listening are jotting this down. Austin, thanks for being so transparent about what you're doing, including like the spend that you're putting towards that. And so, if 500, 600 a week on average, let's say, are you actually getting a lead from that, or a single deal from that on average? You would say.
Roughly, yeah. I mean, there's some campaigns that leads haven't come back in yet that I've been sending. Absolutely, like I don't want to make it seem like every campaign is a lead. But what I have noticed is that when you do it consistently, you start to find a honey hole. And what I mean by that is there's one county in Florida. I have found the correct assessed value offer price to get. I've had 4 or 5, maybe 7 or 8 leads now, and I've bought or I'm buying 4 of them from 2 campaigns. So, you know, if it costs me $400 a campaign to mail this county, and I'm going to walk away with probably 36 to 40 grand on $1,200 investment over the course of 6 to 8 months, I'll do that math. I'll do that all day. That's not a problem. But that's not to say it's always going to happen that way. I have many campaigns that result in almost no leads sometimes. But what's really interesting too, I've noticed with blind offers is, and Ray Zong, I can never pronounce his last name. He's another land guy. Yeah, Zhang. Yeah. He has said this, that you can mess up in a blind offer. You can totally jack up the price, get it entirely wrong, and still find deals. And I was like, man, how do you do that? Well, just 3 or 4 weeks ago, I sent an offer to an area in Florida, and apparently a storm had come through and totally decimated the area probably 3, 4, 5 years ago. Well, Data Tree hadn't updated the assessed values. And so I was making $40,000 and $50,000 offers on properties that the actual assessed value was 27, 26. So I should have been making $14,000 offers or 12 or however you want to do it. But I had the right person at the right time with the right offer, and I made what was it? I made a $52,000 offer on a waterfront property in Port Charlotte. And The seller, she's like, I get these offers all the time. Yours seemed reasonable. I went and checked your website out. You looked legit. So I'll go ahead and do it with you. And I got it after I talked her down a little bit because it was in a scrub J zone. I got it for 48,000 2 weeks ago, and the neighbor's buying it next week for 69. So like those, even on an entirely messed up blind offer campaign, you can still generate really good deals. It's just being honest and being fair to people. I think this goes into philosophy a little bit. I try to find win-win scenarios. If the seller's winning and I'm winning, I'm very happy with that. I'm not trying to make the seller feel like they lost. I'm not trying to make them feel like a loser. I really want to find a situation where they're winning and I'm winning. And in that way, there's no begrudging the situation at all. If that makes sense.
I've heard that consistently as well. And I think it's really easy to get greedy in this game. And this seems to be quite consistent. So, yeah, good to note that. It sounds like pricing is obviously a big part of, what you do here. You do an offer a percentage of the assessed value, if the assessed value is correct. What does that look like then on once you hear back, you're going to have to go do some due diligence and check the pricing out, look at comps. What are you actually doing there?
Yeah, so really, I'm trying to make it as seamless as possible, as really as simple as I possibly can. As soon as I make an offer and it's accepted, the seller will call back and say, "Hey, I saw your offer. I want to sell you the property." They might make a counter offer. They might just sign right out of the gate. I'll try to get a feel for how much negotiation room they have. If they're like hard and fast, no, this is my bottom line. Like I'm not gonna. I don't care who you are. I'm not gonna go lower. I'll still put it under contract, and then I'll contact a couple of realtors in the area and just say, "Hey, I'm a land buyer. I have a property under contract, absolutely under contract. I'm not trying to assign it." And you get into some weird stuff. And I just say, "Hey, I'm just looking for a realtor I can list this with once I close on it. Can you help me run some comps? Can you check it out for me?" And majority of realtors are good. I try to find 2 or 3 in an area just to kind of run it by, just to make sure I'm not crazy or someone's blown smoke. And then if everything is aligning with it being a deal, I tell the seller this on the first conversation. Hey, here's how I operate. I either move forward with the deal once I do some due diligence and we close with a local title company. I call and I renegotiate if I find a problem, something you or I did not know about, if the grass is too high, whatever the reason is, or I just cancel. And I'll tell you, and I try to do this within 2 weeks. So I'm not the guy that's trying to hold on to it for 180 days trying to find a buyer. I do that, but I don't. I try to be honest with their time. I'm honest with them, and they appreciate that. So I'll do my due diligence within 2 weeks, make a decision, and then either move forward or move on. And sellers they love it.
Is it me or are you just oversimplifying things here, Austin?
Like that's a really good, like, there's been plenty of days where my wife is like, "Why are you stress breathing so much?" Because land is very stressful, right? There's a lot of stress in decision making, but my expectation in the way I operate, the way I live, is prospering. I expect that what I do is going to prosper. And so with land, it's the same thing. I expect it to work at some point. It's literally just a numbers game. The more people you can get in front of, the more people you can have discussions with, the more deals you can find, the more money you'll make. So there's a lot of people that, they'll start land and they'll get, maybe one campaign and it resulted in nothing. And they're like, "Oh, $600 just gone." But like if they would have tried 2 or 3 more campaigns in the same area, they could have got 3 deals. You just never know. So I just play that law of averages game.
100%. And I remember getting started myself. I still have it on front of my desk here. My first postcard going out, 500 of these locked down 3 deals for me. And then my next 2 campaigns, 0. And I was freaking out, I remember. And that was already 6 years ago now. But absolutely, the law of average makes this all sort of make sense here. I wanted to talk a little bit about pricing. Have you actually checked out our Pebble Pricer tool before?
Yes, and I think it is an amazing tool for land investors in particular. I'm not sure about houses, but absolutely for land investors, for sure.
So how are you using that tool? Like when you were sort of talking about looking at comps, I was wondering if you're going to bring that up, if you actually used it. But how do you use the tool itself?
So this gets down into I've just found a system that works for me. Everyone's going to work a little bit differently. I primarily like to market in areas of high activity. I'm looking for in the last 90 days, usually on the low end, 15, 20 sales, on the high end, maybe 100, maybe 80. I mess around with that just depending on how active I think the area is. And I'm looking for small vacant subdivision lots usually because if there's activity in those areas, there's buyers in those areas. So what I basically do, and this might make it sound really easy, I don't know. I will find an active area in, say, Florida, in Charlotte County, Florida. I will circle the active area and I will use Pebble to go down and I'll remove all the ones that are just, if all the properties are selling for 30 and there's one that sold for 100, I'll just remove that one and just kind of figure out the average. And then I'll get an idea of what the average price per acre is. And then sometimes I'm using that to price my entire lists, especially if the data is all relatively accurate. If you're in a subdivision, typically the properties are all going to look alike. You won't really get into knowing if there's an issue in that one little particular area until you get leads coming back in. You don't know if there's wetlands or scrub jays or there's so many things in Florida. You have no idea until you get people starting to reach back out to you. But using that Pebble tool, it really helps you isolate the actual averages of what's selling. Because for blind offers, you need to know what's selling. You can't just make up a number. You need to know roughly what it's selling for, and then you just have to make a decision. Am I going to offer 70% of that? Am I going to offer 60, 50, whatever it is? But Pebble helps. It also helps with rural land too, because like I was saying, part of the issue with pricing rural land is you never know what it's actually worth. But using the Pebble pricing tool, you can circle a general area and just kind of figure out exactly what the land is selling for roughly per acre, whether it's $1,000 an acre, 10,000, whatever that is. And then you just make an offer based off of whatever you're feeling comfortable with at that time. That saves you a lot of heartache when you start getting people mailing back, you offered me $300 for my 20-acre parcel. What are you, an idiot? You get all those kinds of things. But the Pebble pricing tool is extremely helpful with that.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, if you are listening, it's a completely free tool. It's a Chrome extension. Just head over to pebblerei.com. Losing my voice here, /pricer. Again, that's pebblerei.com/pricer. Just drop your contact in there and then you'll get access to that to install and use that, while you're sort of looking at things. So a little nugget there. I want to just go back to your letters. Now, I want to be respectful of what you're doing with your letters, but is there anything you feel you might be doing differently that others should explore with their letters? Because a lot of people hesitate nowadays to send out letters. But yeah, anything that you would suggest, or anything you want to share that you're doing on the actual physical letter itself?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think everything's an experiment. So there's no whatever. It's like those old karate movies, right? When the dojos would face off against each other, everyone had their own secret version of karate that would, it's all the same, right? Everyone has a secret sauce, but no one's sauce is really different. Um, it's really not. It's all Thousand Island, Anyways, so when it comes to my mailing campaigns, I think the one thing that does help me, and once again, everyone has their own theory on this, is I leave a counter offer space in my letter. I just say, hey, here's my offer. What would you counter at? I have noticed that there's been certain areas where I was literally off by maybe $1,500 of what they might have actually wanted. And you'll never know that until, like, they might have just thrown away your letter. Well, this isn't the one. This isn't the one. This is $1,000 off my offer. I'm not even going to waste my time, but I'll put this little counter area in there. And if I've offered, 11 and they counter at 12, that's great. They at least get it back to me. And then, yeah, I'll go through my whole spiel again. Hey, here's how I operate. If there's a problem, I'll try to renegotiate with you. And there's been multiple times where I have renegotiated below my even blind offer, which was below their wanted offer based off of what I found. And so I feel like that gives the seller a sense of control in the discussion. and ultimately they're the ones in control anyways. There's people that have a theory of, I don't want to give them any sense of control. And I'm like, great. If that's working for you, that's awesome. But for me, I like sellers feeling like they have, a little bit of a say in the discussion, because it's a communication, right? We're just communicating. And then if it's not the deal for me at the end of the day, it's not the deal for me. I don't care, because I'll find another one later.
I almost feel like you look at this as almost a dance that you're going to do together. And you get some sort of a buy-in from them as soon as they interact or engage with you. I know somebody else who sends a letter as well. They actually have a box where they get them to draw something. I forgot exactly what it was, but it's either the property or mark something on the property. But that level of engagement allows for that conversation. You can see they're down to dance with you or not. And it's such a low barrier for them to get back to you. And you can start feeling things out. So that's so interesting that you do that. Very cool. Thanks for sharing with us some of the specifics on what you do with your letters there. I don't do this often, and I'll be transparent with all the listeners here. And Austin actually reached out to me and just kind of gave us a nice comment about how Pebble has served him and how he's enjoyed the product. And I shared that with the team. It really made our day, because you can imagine we get a lot of feature requests and we get a lot of stuff that we have to work on, and that's why we are very open about what we work on. Every single month, Kevin and I go live on YouTube sharing the updates. Now every week or every other week I try to vlog and share a little bit more. We have office hours where if there's new best practice, I will go there and share with the community what we're doing. And so I really appreciated you reaching out here. I wanted to ask you, inside of Pebble, as a day-to-day Pebble user, is there anything specific that comes to mind that either saves you a lot of time or solves some challenges for you, or you just enjoy using about Pebble that you can sort of share with us openly on the air here?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking a little bit about that as we were getting prepped, and I think the thing that makes Pebble easy for me is I like plug and play. I don't like to build a system. I am not a systems builder. There are guys that they live in spreadsheets. I hate spreadsheets. I despise them. And so what Pebble has offered me is the ability to just plug and play. I buy my list, and I have a VA that's really helping me with a lot of this too. I buy my list, I download my list, we get it prepped and ready, we upload it to Pebble, we get our prices in there, we mail it off. It's really simple. I don't have to sit there and mess around with spreadsheets and try to remember what spreadsheet is where and when is what. So that as soon as offers start rolling in, I type in that little offer code and we're off to the races. One of the coolest features, and this is kudos to you guys, is the ability to actually see the property through the GPS coordinates.
Yeah.
Absolutely game changer information, because and then being able to screenshot that little area and set it as a little cover photo for the property. So as soon as I'm going through my list of leads, I'm like, oh, there's that property. I know exactly where that's at. I know where that's at. I know, okay, I remember this one, so those little features are huge for my use case. And it's helped me really focus in on how I'm using Pebble, and really take away a lot of headache from trying to manage other CRMs. I was on other CRMs. I was on Podio. I was using Launch Control. I've used a couple others. And the way that Pebble operates, and I'm a light user. I will be totally honest with you. I probably could dive in a lot more, but from what I am using and how I'm utilizing it, it's just been a really easy system.
I mean, that's awesome to hear that even though you might be a light user, you're consistently getting deals, which is like what you messaged me about. And again, that was just really nice to see, somebody in action sharing that with us. Obviously, we spend a lot of time talking to a lot of our users, but again, we don't get to talk to somebody often who's just, hey, this is, this is what I'm doing on a day to day. And I just want to let you know. So it's great to hear that. Yeah, and I hope you're going to be pleasantly surprised with some of the things we're working on, especially on the mapping side of things. So there's certain areas. I actually talk about it in my next upcoming vlog. So awesome. Again, if you guys are following us on YouTube, it's pebblerei.com/YouTube. You can follow us along the journey. And that's been huge for us. Sticking around with the community has been big for us. And yeah. So anyways, thanks so much for sharing that. I guess my last question here, it just feels like um, you're really just keeping things simple here, which I really like. I feel a lot of people come into this space really overcomplicating things, and maybe it's the way you tell it to me. I don't know, but I totally see, and I know I get to interact with a lot of people in the Dirt Hacker Challenge, and we run stuff, and I get to speak to a lot of people, and it is true that people that are doing this on a day-to-day basis, it's really great to see that you are focusing your time on the high value stuff. You're not spending time building a system. You're not spending time being what I call a product manager. And believe it or not, there are people, I feel like it's a curse and a blessing. They come into the landscape, they have a technical background, and they're trying to tinker everything. And their minds are so wrapped up there that they forget that they're here to run a land business. Yep. But anyways, I wanted to leave this open to you. Is there sort of anything that I might have missed that you want to share with our listeners in terms of general advice? You've dropped so much gems here in this last 30, 35 minutes here. But is there anything else that you sort of might want to let other people know about in terms of advice, getting started, or running a land business here that I might have missed out on?
Yeah, I think there's three little things, and this is I'll end with these three. The first one is massive imperfect action, right? Like if you're trying to get in this, don't just dip your feet in it. I think it's Tom Kroll that uses that phrase as massive imperfect action. So just go at it, try it, see what happens, and you're not going to get it right. I promise you, you will not get it right on your first mailing campaign. You'll get a lot wrong, but you'll learn. And then I think the other thing is, I had two other things: massive perfection, progress, not perfection. Right? I think that's another Tom Kroll saying is just keep progressing, keep trying. Just don't give up. It might get a little weary sometimes, but it works. That you'll send out one campaign and not get anything. You'll send out two more and you might get 5 deals. Who knows, right? And I think the third thing is just really just keep it simple. Right, that keep it simple, sweetie. Like people can spend so much time working on their business that they have no business to build, right? And this is that you're building a business when you're in land. So if you can just really hone in and just breathe through it, take your time, and I don't know, it just works. The more you're consistent with anything. I had a friend telling me this when I quit my job because I was kind of nervous about moving full time into something I had no idea about. And he said, work works. And I believe it. Work works. If you work, it will work. And so I think those are the three things to just really don't beat yourself up. Just try it and see what happens.
Well, I think you mentioned a word there, and I think some people might roll their eyes to this. I don't know. I hear it a lot too. And like if I've heard the most consistent thing about people who are winning at land, it's that word, consistency. Like, yes. Stick with it. You will learn a lot, and the beginning may be painful, but if you can ride through that, there's some great stuff on the other end there waiting for you. So absolutely. Austin, before I let you go here, I want to get to know you as a person here. So I call this the quick fire round for people who are new on the show here. I want to know a few things about you. Outside of land, what do you like doing? I can't imagine you're probably not all day working on land. I know work works, but what else do you like to do? You've got 2 kids. What does that look like?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time going to parks. So we have two young girls, and so we spend a lot of time hanging out, going to do things. We like to travel. We like to go to Europe. I've actually closed deals while traveling, which was that's an amazing experience. So I read a lot. I'm kind of a nerd. I'll be honest with you. I spend time with my kids and I read a lot. So I'm not a very interesting person outside of this, I guess.
Sure. Well, I love reading as well. So, let's talk about books. What are you currently reading, and what's a book you would recommend someone?
Yeah, so I'm a big history reader. So I'm finishing up a book on Winston Churchill recently. That's been really good. I read the Bible a lot. Like I said, I'm a pretty devout Christian, so I read a lot of the Bible. As far as business books, I try to I try to find a balance between reading too many. I think one of the best ones is Never Split the Difference. I think that's a big buzz book around here. I just got one, Flip the Script. That's my next read that I'm going to be diving in on. Should be a good read. But
sorry, what's the Flip the Script about?
The premise of it is I think it says something along the lines of getting people to, I'm going to fudge it, but getting people to have ideas that they didn't know they had. So like you're trying to get, I guess it's a psychology, maybe a sales psychology of trying to get people to have thoughts that they weren't expecting to have about something. We're trying to find a deal on a piece of land, right? You're trying to flip the script and basically bring an essence of control into a discussion to where people start, that is a pretty good idea. So I haven't dived into it just yet, but I think that's the gist of it from what I've seen. Someone might be in the comments like, that was a horrible explanation of it. And I'm like, I don't care. I haven't read it yet. So
that's awesome. Well, a lot of people listening might be thinking, oh man, Austin has it so good. He's got 2 kids, spends time at the park, got a great business. Let's talk about a bad habit. What is a bad habit that you're currently working on? Let's humanize you a little bit.
Please do. It's definitely needed. I browse Facebook Marketplace way too much. I am a
oh man.
I am a deal. I like deals. I like finding. I know. Phil told me one time because I like to browse Facebook Marketplace to find good deals on PlayStation 4s and Xboxes just to make a couple $100 a month just for fun. And Phil is like, dude, you need to stop doing that. That's just ridiculous.
You know what, Austin? Listen, I completely understand you. Like, I will get a high off of buying because I like flipping toys and I like margin on it, like extra $20. Yeah. But it's not about the dollar. It's about getting that deal done. And exactly. I think it fulfills this sort of, it almost becomes, it is a hobby. You come into this hunter and you know what? I think it does sharpen your skill. So I hope you don't drop that one. I'm exactly the same. And if I can sell something or if I can find something, I hang out on Marketplace.
Well, what I've noticed is it helps in the slow months. Like if land's going slow, go find something to flip real quick, like to get that little adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it's that hit of adrenaline you get. Yeah, we're such junkies for deals. Oh man, that's awesome. Okay, one more thing here. What's your favorite food?
Bro, I'm from California originally, so I eat everything under the sun. I'll eat Japanese, Chinese, Indian. I'm a chef too by nature. So to hone in on something, man, I honestly cannot hone in on one single thing that I like because I grew up on it all. I tell everyone like I would be a very large blank, just fill in whatever culture I'm eating at the time because I just love every culture's food so much.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
So I'm a horrible person to ask that question.
You're a trier of different culinary cultures. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you've been awesome to interview, Austin. And man, it's just really refreshing to hear how you are keeping things simple. You're staying focused, and you're just keeping the thing moving, and you've got a system in place for you for that. So congratulations on that. Hey, are you open for other land investors to reach out and connect with you? Maybe a simple message. What's sort of the best way they can find you? Is it on just Facebook or is it on email or what do you prefer?
Yeah, just shoot me a message on Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, so I'm on there responding to vacant land messages all day. So feel free to shoot me a message. I'm happy to help if I can.
Awesome. Well, Austin, thank you so much again for your time. We've mentioned a few tools on here, so make sure you do grab that. It includes the Pebble Pricer there. Austin, thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you continue to prosper here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it, Jesse.
Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening and catch you on our next episode.